Now this may look like a vintage speaker, and it is a vintage speaker, but it's also a mystery. And it's one that I think you guys might find interesting. So I want to take you along with me on the journey as I tried to figure out what these are and where they came from. This is probably the most fun that I have had doing a video in quite a long time. Hopefully, you guys will have fun with it too. Now, I'm going to insert a caveat here. Everything I'm going to tell you is just based on what I could find on forums and through catalog posts and that kind of thing. I'm not 100% certain of anything that I found out about these, so I may not be exactly correct on every detail. I did the best that I could with very limited information to go on. So let's start at the beginning. These came out of an estate sale about 2 years ago. They were thrown in for free with the Sansui 221 that I showed a while back. I remember hooking them up initially and liking the sound, but because they have no badge or label, I just sort of set them aside figuring there wasn't much to talk about if I don't know who built them. Check out these free speakers that I got. I don't know what they are. The end. Doesn't make for particularly compelling content. The grills have no evidence of labeling anywhere on them that I can see. The back part, where the fiberboard is visible, has obviously been sanded away with some kind of power tool. Obviously something was there, but I can't tell what it was or how long ago it was sanded away. The grill and the cloth are attached with 4 Velcro pads which have been firmly stapled in place. The full system consists of a 10-inch bass driver and a 3-inch paper tweeter. The cabinet itself is not ported and is made of particle board with what looks like either walnut or teak veneer, and the construction quality points to something that was built in a factory, not in somebody's garage, which will also be important later. Again, there are no labels visible, but I did find the first clue when I removed the base cone. Also take note of the basic wood screws that they used. If I flip the cone over and look at the back, we can see a few numbers printed on it. It reads 5810119, then 137, then 6837. These each provide some very interesting info, which helped quite a bit. The most important number here is the 137. That, as it turned out, is a number code for the company Chicago Telephone Supply, more commonly known as CTS. The number is a code used by the EIA to identify parts and manufacturers here in the US. The EIA, which stood for Electronic Industries Association, or Electronic Industries Alliance, is a standards organization that's probably best recognized as the creators of the ceramic resistor color code and that famous TV test pattern, which I thought was interesting. So now that I have a manufacturer for the speaker, what are the other 2 numbers? The 6837 is very likely a date code. In this case, it would be the 37th week of 1968, which is mid-September, or around the same time Frodo left Bag End for Crick Hollow. The top number is an internal manufacturing code, and I couldn't find any documentation on what it meant specifically. CTS made a wide variety of these 10-inch speakers around that time, with each application having a different line and corresponding attributes. The most well-known of which was used in the iconic Fender guitar amps. These, however, are a driver which was meant for home hi-fi use and PA systems, if what I read was accurate. From what I could find, they marketed it as a full-range driver which could stand alone or be augmented by a tweeter to bring out the highs. Unlike the Fender speakers, these have 2 features that were only found on the hi-fi variants. The vent on the dust cap, according to what I read, was meant to equalize the air pressure around the voice coil so that it doesn't act like a damping spring and color the sound like the guitar speakers would. And the little hexagonal bump pattern was meant to stiffen the cone. The rib speakers, on the other hand, were intended to flex a little and emphasize and suppress certain frequencies and resonances. Again, that's good for a guitar amp, but not really for hi-fi. Now, if you look online on forums, you're going to find just as many opinions that disagree with what I just said as agree with it. It's very difficult to find definitive information about these. That said, we do know that these speakers are from 1968, we know that they were built by CTS, and we know that they're meant for home stereo systems. Are there any other clues? The magnet is made from a material called alnico, which is an alloy of aluminium for my European viewers, nickel, and cobalt. By 1968, when these were made, ferrite magnets had started to appear and were less expensive to manufacture. However, they had a lower flux density, which basically means they had to be bigger than the alnico magnets to be the same strength. That pushed the alnico magnets into more premium applications, like home stereo. I wanted to get a look at the magnet, so I removed the little dust cap and took a look inside, mostly to see if they had any labels or anything stamped in there, but unfortunately there wasn't. You can clearly see the magnet and coil though. Unfortunately, the little metal cap got bent when I removed it, and that annoyed me, so I had to try to fix it and make it look nice before I glued it back on. So, we know that the 10-inch cone is made by CTS, but that's still a problem because CTS didn't make full cabinet speakers like this, as far as I can tell. So that's still not the answer. So I had to keep looking. This is a 3-inch paper tweeter, and more of those same wood screws. On the back, it says tweeter, 8 ohms, 6 watts, Japan, 703 TNF. Unfortunately, despite a couple of days of searching, I wasn't able to find any information about that number letter code. However, I'm fairly confident these are generic tweeters that would have been available from either a catalog or electronics store. Obviously, everybody knows about Radio Shack, which was owned by Tandy. But the other two big catalogs that I ran across the most were Allied Knight and Lafayette. Heathkit seemed to pop up a lot too. What's important about that is the fact that at the time, they all sold a lot of individual parts to be able to build your own speakers like this. They sold the cabinets, the drivers, the terminals, even the grill cloth. All that led me to this page of the 1969 Radio Shack catalog. Right down in the bottom corner is this listing. It's an 8-inch woofer and a 3.5-inch paper tweeter, pre-wired with a capacitor and installed in a custom-designed cabinet. All you do is wire it up yourself. And that, I believe, is kind of what we have here. Obviously, this isn't the same exact product. In fact, I doubt it's even from Radio Shack. I suspect it's something that came from an Allied radio catalog because CTS was obviously in Chicago. So actually, they're from Indiana, not Chicago, but geographically, they're close enough that the point still stands. And that's where Allied is based. I also believe that this was a package deal like the Radio Shack listing because the holes in the cabinet are sized pretty exactly to the form of the two speaker cones. Once I got there, I ended up looking for other examples of speakers that Allied had sold, and I started to find examples of the same exact terminals that they used on these. So if they're not specifically from Allied, they're very likely from a similar source and were assembled in the late 60s by whoever bought them. But now, remember those sanded bits in the back? Almost every speaker that I've seen from this era has a paper label or at most a little metal badge glued on. Most of those are pretty easy to remove without a lot of effort. So I get the feeling that these sanded parts were done later by someone else who wanted to get rid of something like property of Sunnydale High School written in Sharpie or maybe glue residue. Either way, I get the feeling whoever I got them from was not the person who put them together. So now we have a decent idea of what these are. But I think that begs another important question. Why would someone buy a kit like this? Because if you want to buy each piece separately, that gives you the freedom of customization. It's a lot like building a computer where you choose the motherboard, the processor, the graphics card, and that kind of thing. Name brand speakers, on the other hand, are a lot like a Dell or an Apple. But these IKEA-style kit speakers, they sit somewhere in the middle. If we look at the catalogs again, we can see one major advantage: cost. The kit example that I showed earlier cost less than $10. In the same catalog, they have a nearly identical MC1000 speaker, which cost nearly $60 for almost the same thing, at least according to the ad copy. Now, I'm sure the components in the MC1000 are quite a bit nicer than what you'd get in a $10 kit, but they're roughly the same size and they look very similar. If you're ordering things from a catalog, you can't listen to them first anyway and compare them, so you wouldn't really know the difference. We also have to keep in mind that this was and still is a hobby for people. Electronics were advancing and changing the world in real time, and a lot of people just really wanted to take part. It was an exciting time for technology, and those same hobbyists were the people that would usher in the PC revolution. But the point is, it was way less expensive to build something from a kit, and it lent itself to the time-honored tradition of garage tinkering. So that's my best estimate for the story of these unlabeled speakers that I got from an estate sale. However, I'm hoping that by putting this video out there, someone else would have had the same speaker set and can tell me more about them, where they came from, who sold them, how much they cost, and that kind of thing. I'd love to know more about these. So, I have a question for everyone. I've been considering doing a video about some of the tools that I use to test equipment when I'm at estate sales. Would that be something that you guys would want to see? Because if not, I do have plenty more pieces of equipment to keep showing. But if you do, let me know in the comments. I've got a little kit bag that I take with me when I go that makes the process a lot easier. So I just thought it might make a fun video. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Keep thrifting, and may metal reign supreme.